Here we are again today at our 20 by 20 cabin project in Fairbanks, Alaska. And a little bit of backstory, this project is pretty unusual in that one owner framed it up completely, walls, floor, and roof. And it was an unfinished shell, and then it changed hands. And the new owner bought the place and started looking at how he was going to insulate it and realized that this cabin had some real challenges, some thermal deficiencies, and it would be difficult to get a climate appropriate amount of insulation into the walls, the floor, and the roof as they are framed currently. And so we are going to look today at ways to improve the energy performance of these walls by a significant amount. I'm going to start with a brief review of the windows that this cabin came with that were installed by the previous owner. They're a comparatively inexpensive double pane sliding window. And for us here in Climate Zone 8, I just want to say I don't think these are appropriate windows. Our suggested energy code here in Alaska says we should have a window with a minimum R value of 4.5. These double pane sliders probably come in at about an R value of 2. And in addition, because they're sliders, it's very difficult to seal where the two panes pass by each other. There's a single latch here that attempts to seal this window along its entire length. And when you look at a casement window, which is an open swinging window, as it closes, it has a mechanical advantage because it's compressing the seal, and high quality triple pane windows will have multiple latching points or engagement points to make sure that seal stays tight. With these double panes, you tend to get ice buildup and air leakage right here through the seal, and in some cases moisture can build up and you can get moisture damage in the sill. You know, I would caution people or advise people designing and building a new home to buy the best windows you can reasonably afford. And for us here in Fairbanks, Alaska, that means a triple pane window. Now we're looking at the exterior walls themselves. And you might notice in our videos that I do spend quite a bit of time talking about exterior walls. And the reason for that is the exterior walls on a home are typically the largest surface area exposed to the elements. And that means those are also potentially the greatest area of heat losses. And looking at this wall in particular, it's a 2x6 wall. That's great. We can put R21 insulation in it, but it's framed 16 inches on center. And when I take the 16-inch on center framing into account, and then the built-up studs and trimmers, headers, this whole wall is probably 30% solid wood, which really brings down its energy performance. 24-inch on center framing is perfectly acceptable by building code. You can build a 2x6 wall 24 inches on center, and it will support both a floor load and a roof load. And caveat here is you should have a structural engineer review all of your framing decisions. But in general, 24 inches on center framing is perfectly acceptable. If I measure here, this is, 16 inches on center. In contrast, the space between our furring is 24 inches on center. So it gives you a sense for how much more insulation we can put in here. Let's take a closer look at this furring. So, with the furring, 16 penny gun nails are plenty adequate for our furring. I do like, on occasion, using 3-inch screws. These are GRK number 10 R4 exterior screws. They're just a nice self-drilling screw. And the reason for that is the gun nails sometimes split the furring at the ends. And it's not the end of the world, but if you have a little extra time, my preference would be to gun nail all the nails in the field, and then at the end of the furring, run the screws in, potentially even pre-drill them, and it avoids some of that splitting issue. Now let's take a deeper dive into the furring and additional insulation we're adding to this wall assembly. Our current state energy code recommends that exterior walls in Climate Zone 8 be insulated to R30. In this case, we're starting with an R21 wall built by the previous owner, and this project is on a really tight budget, so we can't get to R30, but by adding 1.5 inches of furring, we're getting really, really close. And what really matters by adding this additional insulation to the wall assembly is everywhere we have a wood stud, and remember earlier I said this wall is about 30% solid wood. Everywhere there's a wood stud, this wall, insulated with R21 as is, right here has an R value of about 6. As soon as I add additional insulation over here, I'm effectively doubling the R value over the wood. When you factor in the entire wall worth of wood, that starts making a big difference in energy performance. The furring does another thing for us, and it typically makes these walls inherently much, much tighter because now we're keeping our wiring and our electrical outlets on the warm side of the vapor retarder, so our air leakage rates tend to go down. Alternatively to the foam board, you can also use fiberglass bats in your 1.5 inch furring bays. And this is where it kind of gets interesting. Like this bat right here is half of an R21 fiberglass bat. I split it in half. And in theory, this bat right now has an R value of about 10.5. However, when I install it in this furring bay, it does compress down a little bit. And that's actually a good thing, because when we take a bat like this, that's just a little bit thicker, when we compress it, it fills this furring bay entirely, and we're getting just about the same R value per inch as we are with the foam board. There's a couple of tricks to installing the bats. One of them is we're using strapping tape to hold the bats in place. This will matter especially if you're using drywall, because if the bats aren't held in place, pushing the drywall against the wall moves air and it can displace the fiberglass and make that a giant nuisance trying to deal with it. Other than that, this is a very economical way to add a little more R value to a wall system. We used our energy modeling software on this cabin, and we calculated at current fuel prices, heating oil prices of $4.56 a gallon, that the cost of materials for our fiberglass, our furring, and our sundries, which is our gun nails and acoustical sealant and so forth, we got a payback of 6 years. If you were to raise your fuel prices to $6 a gallon, obviously your paybacks get even shorter. We have a much more detailed video that covers a lot of these install techniques and considerations for furring, and we will put that in our description. And as always, we welcome your questions and comments. Thank you.